because like I said, it's biologically imperative that our children, like as a human child, I need to be cared for by an adult, right? So when that adult is in a bad mood, that directly impacts my ability to be cared for, right? When that adult is in a good mood, I get cared for better, right? So that's just, I get that, right? As a human child. So
Hey Mom Nation, welcome to Mental Wealth with Laura Wood and Katie Holly Lambert, where we talk through generational trauma so we can leave a new legacy for our children. Counselor Laura is with Benevieri Counseling out of Chandler, Arizona, and you can find her on Facebook, on the web, or by the link in the show notes. We hope you enjoy the show.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It is I. Why do I say that? I feel like I'm in like an old movie. I say that. It is I. Real Estatie Katie, your MOMnation founder. It's me. I'm here. And I'm here with my good buddy, Laura, Counselor Laura, or just Laura.
hello,
How's it going
hello.
today, friend?
It's going so good. I'm Laura, Counselor Laura.
Or just Laura, as
Just
we like
Laura.
to call her, whatever. But you know what? I have some really great news. And I think you might know this, but our little show, so this is Mental Wealth, guys. And what we do here is we talk about your individual mental health, because we have like baggage and things and traumas and stuff that we don't want to pass on to our kiddos, right? And so Laura and I have been here every month, which I love seeing you, by the way.
So fun.
Talking through different things. And, we often will choose a post in MOMnation Arizona, usually, because that's the biggest group that we have to kind of talk through. But anyway, that's what we are doing here today. And that's what we do here every month on the last Wednesday of the month at 4:00 Arizona time. But here's the cool thing. Did you know that our podcast is being listened to overseas?
I didn't know that.
Isn't that so awesome? Yeah. So we're starting
That is really
to
cool.
build, it isn't huge, but we're starting to build the following overseas. And that just like makes me so happy. I think that's so great. I think everybody needs the gift of mental wellness.
Yeah, I think so too. And I love that. I love that we can be everywhere instead of just limited to our individual offices. And, like this is such a great way to give a little bit more access to people who, just want a little bit of help and get it for free.
Absolutely. And we go pretty deep here.
We do.
I was watching I always watch, the replay of our shows, but some of them I'm like, dang, that was really good advice. Awesome.
We go hard in here. We really do. We are getting to the root of it. We're not messing around.
That is the truth. Well, because it's so important. But before we get into today's topic, I have another group member. So it's an anonymous post that we're going to talk about today. And it's a topic that I think a lot of us mamas struggle with. I hear it a lot. I say it a lot. And so I'm actually really, really excited for us to chat through this post. But before we do, I just want to bring up really, really quick, just a little something about my friend Sonia. So my friend Sonia Minez, she works with me on Team EvoAZ. You guys may know her. She's a real estate agent just like I am, based in the Arizona area. Cool fun fact about Sonia, she's actually dually licensed. So she's licensed in Washington too.
Cool. I know we have a MOMnation in Washington, don't we?
We do have a MOMnation in Washington, and she's actually responsible for it. So Sonia is cool in so many ways. And she does work with us. She's on our team. She's been a realtor for 6-7 years, something like that. She's been with us for several years. And what I love about her is she's got such great experience in the new build world. So she just purchased a new build herself. She just moved in a couple of weeks ago. My heart goes out to her moving in and doing all of this during the holidays. And she's got a newborn. Well, I guess not a newborn anymore. He's a year old. But when you have older kids, right? Like babies like that is still newborn. Like you still get that label. But anyway, she did jump into that. And so she is really well-versed in the whole new build world. And that is her passion. So check her out if you have any new build questions about any new build communities around Phoenix, Arizona. Sonia is your girl. So check her out, Sonia with Team EvoAZ. And if you are listening like in the United Kingdom right now, because I know we have listeners there, or right, I think it's so cool. then no matter where you are in the US or around the world, you can still contact Team EvoAZ. We can still connect you with our network. Our network is worldwide, and we have agents in every state, every city, every country, probably not every country, but try to stop me. Let's do it.
You'll have one by the end of the week.
Yeah. All right. So that's my friend Sonia, guys. If you have any new build questions, check her out. Again, Sonia Minez. She is with Team EvoAZ. All right. Let me share my screen and we're going to just hop right into it, Laura.
Okay.
So here we go. Here is the anonymous post. And it says, for those of you who are just listening to the audio version, what do you do when you just feel like you're not enough? I'm not enough for my kids. I'm not enough for my husband. I try so hard every day to keep up and do everything that needs to be done, but constantly feel like it's never enough. I feel like I'm not here enough or there enough for my kids. They deserve better. I'm not there enough for my husband, and he does so much for me. Where do I get the extra from? How can I find more of me to give? I feel so defeated. Well, hell if I haven't been in those shoes before, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I'm literally like choked up. I feel so compassionate for this person. I want to give her a hug in real life. And I have so many thoughts. A lot of them are questions though, like what drives that belief?
That was my question too. Is somebody saying that?
Because I feel like is this the common, I feel like, quote unquote, I'm air bunnies. I feel like, and when we feel like, we're often interpreting the world around us in a way that is potentially not exactly accurate, but it is sort of the information that we're taking in, what we notice about the system that we're in or the situation that we're in, excuse me, we're noticing things that are continuing to feed that belief. And we do that for a reason, like there's a lot of reasons behind that. But when we're feeling like that so deeply, even if people say that that's not true, then basically what our logic, like our brain and our body don't necessarily agree. So we can feel like it, but we can't know that we are. Right. So I don't know if I'm making sense. Like I kind of just feel like when we take in information, we interpret it through our own lens, right? So
through your filters, through what you've experienced.
Yeah. And our objective reality is never objective. Our realities are not objective. Our subjective reality is what tells us kind of what's happening. And so when we're saying, I feel like, that means that we're interpreting situations versus we know them, right? So it's not always true because feelings aren't facts. And so I want this person to know that when you feel like you're not enough for your kids, that's just not true. That's objectively not true in most cases, because you're showing up, you're giving them you. Everything isn't necessary, just you are necessary. So you in your own self is enough.
And typically for our kids, that is enough.
That's
really all they want, right?
That's what they want. That's what they need. Our authentic connection. And they don't care if the dishes didn't get done today.
Or if you didn't fix their hair up in ribbons and bows. I think a lot of times, and this is, I want to just go out on a limb real quick, and I just feel like this is true for everybody. It is, we have such, and things have changed over the last, decades, right? And we have such an intimate view into people's lives, or so we think, right? With social media and just, I guess just social media is what I'm talking about. And
Well, yeah.
we see, I see these moms that have the perfect hair and the perfect makeup, and they're making cookies and, all this. Like, I feel like that's just not even reality. And if we're trying to compare ourselves against that or trying to compete against that, I think we're trying to compete against something that isn't real.
Yeah. Definitely.
And so, like, I have questions too, and I totally agree with you. Like where is this coming from? Are you seeing the perfect mom, the perfect wife on social media and trying to be that, and that's just not working out? Because I don't think anyone can accomplish that.
Yeah. Yeah. And is this also, is this something that people are telling you?
That's my other question.
Because if somebody's telling you that you're not good enough, they're objectively wrong. Because you as a person are exactly good enough. It's not about, if you didn't accomplish tasks, that does not mean you are not good, right? The outcomes, we're really focused often on outcomes, but the outcomes don't make you enough. The inside is what makes you enough. The you being a whole person and your authentic self is what makes you enough. And if somebody else is saying to you, you didn't get this done, or you're not doing enough for me, or you're not being there for me, and you're saying, okay, let's talk about what that looks like, and you're trying to have an adult conversation, and this other person is just saying like, you're not enough, well, then that other person's perspective is not in alignment with you and your, values and yourself and your goals. And I think the bigger conversation needs to be what is right for that person and what is right for you.
Well, right. Because if that person isn't giving you detail, okay, then you can't, like you said, you can't have an adult, a clear communication about, hey, this is, what I expect of you. Okay, I'm cool with that. And I can do that. Or, hey, that's never me. That's not me. I'm not going to do that.
Right. If I'm telling you, well, objectively saying to somebody like you're not enough is just not okay to say. So
it's not.
So objectively, that's just rude. So if that's the case, like, I think then we talk about like, how do we want to be treated and what are our boundaries, right? But I have a feeling, and when I hear the quote, where do I get the extra from? How can I find more of me to give? Those things are inside beliefs that are driven by something telling you that if you aren't giving enough, if you aren't offering more, then other people won't love and accept you, and that you'll be alone. And that's a childhood perspective of that deep sense, because a childhood perspective of aloneness is a deep, painful sense of aloneness that is dangerous, that equals like an internal death, like a sense of death. And so when we're trying so hard to say, I need to do more, I need to do more, I need to do more, in order to make people stay with me, in order to make people love me, in order to keep people around so that I'm not alone, that's based in something that was created and learned in childhood. And that's the deep perspective that needs to be addressed, because when children aren't enough to make their parents happy or stable, which I want to say objectively, it's not a child's job to make their parents happy and stable. But when children grow up in homes where parents are unhappy and unstable, and they're expecting the child to behave a certain way, to do certain things, to act in a way to be quote unquote enough for the parent to feel better and to feel happy and to feel stable and to offer love and nurturing and affection, that child is learning that you're not enough. And so the sense of I'm not enough is always going to feel so true, because the reality is it's impossible For a child to do enough, be enough, like to say enough, to be a certain way, a child cannot make an adult stable and happy, and a child cannot make an adult care for them in a way that they deserve to be cared for if that adult doesn't have those skills. That's the adult's responsibility.
Right.
Right. So the I'm not enough in that case is objectively true, right? I'm not enough to change my mom's ability to care for me, because that's impossible. No one is.
Right.
But that sticks with us. And then we're constantly trying to do and be and say and perform so that everyone around us is happy and stable. And when everyone around us is not happy and stable, we blame ourselves and believe that there's more we could and should be doing to make them happy and stable, which again is impossible, right? We can't make another person happy or stable.
Mm-hmm.
And so this I'm not enough narrative is going to continue to replay, because it's always going to be true when we're measuring against a childhood's perspective of influencing a parent or a person's response, like influencing a person's responses to them and their own internal stimuli. So basically, this running I'm not enough is a traumatic reenactment that a child's self is feeling like I can never do enough to make somebody else okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that part's true, but when it comes to whether or not you did enough, right? Or, you know, like the dishes, the tasks, the social stuff, like all that stuff that you talked about, like to measure up, quote unquote, doesn't have anything to do with that. We can never do or be something that changes another person's internal ability to regulate themselves.
Well, and shame on them for expecting it.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know. Maybe they were just taught to expect that, right?
Shame on parents for expecting their kids to, but I don't even like to say shame on, because they don't know either, right? We're reenacting. It's all a reenactment. It's a replay. It's a chance to redo it. It's if I can, so this part of you, let's say you're going through and saying, I'm not enough. And that came from your childhood. That is a part of you, a part of your nervous system and your neural networks that are stuck in trauma time. That's what we call that, trauma time, because they are not connected to the present time and space that we exist in right now. So those networks in our mind and our nervous system are unaware that this is not childhood. They're unaware that they don't have to earn caretaking. They're unaware that this isn't something to solve. This is a different situation. And so these networks are trying to solve a problem that existed back then, which is an unsolvable problem, because you're a child and your parents you can't change your parents. So when you're not getting your needs met in childhood, that network, it just gets stuck in this trauma time that follows you, but never grows older, right? It never gets the perspective of becoming older. So when you're looking out at the world and you get triggered by this stuff, that stuff still believes that you're a child. So it's like saying, so I need somebody basically to, like, the feeling is I need somebody to care for me. I need somebody to, I'm dependent on another person to be stable, right? So we can feel like we're not enough because the other person's unstable or unhappy or whatever. And we believe that that's going to that's bad or dangerous or whatever. And we have to change it because that was our childhood strategy. So we're reenacting that because that part of our mind and our body doesn't actually realize that we've grown up and we're adults and that stuff is over now.
Mm-hmm. I think it's huge. Like, light bulb went over my head when you said that for a child, abandonment, was that a word you used? Might have been.
Yeah.
Okay. is so much more intense
Yes.
for them than it would be if, like, you know, an adult, you know, somebody leaves you, like your
Yeah.
spouse leaves you or whatever. I didn't realize, and it makes a lot of sense. Personally, I have abandonment issues. They're getting better.
Yeah.
You know, I'm working on it, but because I basically was abandoned as a child,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that those feelings are so intense and
Right.
that grows with you, but doesn't age.
Yeah. Yeah. So it stays with you, but never gains the perspective of adulthood. So a child being abandoned is very dangerous, right? Because a child is dependent. A child needs a caretaker. A child cannot go out and get money and work and have a house and do all these things. A child can't necessarily keep itself safe and alive, right? So if a child is abandoned, that's very dangerous. So that can be something that is so painful and life-threatening that a sense of abandonment or early abandonment consistently can feel, it triggers something that is called an annihilation fear. And so that's like an internal death. So the feeling of an internal death as a child carried through adulthood keeps you fearing that abandonment, but because it doesn't know that adults can't be abandoned. Adults are not dependent. They cannot be abandoned. I cannot, because I don't have someone who's responsible for me, no one can abandon me.
Right. And your spouse isn't responsible for you.
No, they can decide to leave. You guys can split up, but that's not being abandoned.
Right.
Because you're an adult and you're responsible for yourself. And you are responsible for keeping yourself safe. And you are capable of keeping yourself safe because you're no longer a child. So the abandonment fear that when we transition to an adulthood is actually, as an adult, it's grief. As a child, it's experienced as death. As an adult, that experience is grief.
But it's more intense if you carried the feeling from
That's right.
childhood.
Right.
So this could be the case for this poor gal.
Yeah. Then being enough to be there for everyone is a sense of, I have to do all these things in order to not be abandoned, in order to be enough to be loved, to deserve love and care. And that's just not true. You do deserve love and care as a human. And when we are in relationships that provide love and care unconditionally, then we can find safety. And when we can offer ourselves love and care unconditionally on the inside, then we can have an internal relationship with ourselves that provides an internal sense of safety, which is the antidote to feeling abandoned.
And so, I mean, would it be appropriate to label that like a codependency?
Yeah, I think codependency comes from that, right? Like codependency comes from the feeling that you cannot exist without the other person. Right. And so if both people are in alignment with that, in agreement, then you're codependent. Right. Like you can't live without me. I can't live without you. If we both agree to that, then we're codependent.
But what if it's just one person?
That's just dependent, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I would have to look up the definition of codependent to splice that out, but effectively, if I believe that I can't live without you, then I'm running a strategy that is based in childhood.
Okay.
And so that's when, when I learned about trauma and EMDR and structural dissociation and all of this information that is basically how our nervous system, our body, and our brain respond to these early childhood experiences. I was trained by Sarah Jenkins, and she kind of says this all the time, is you're running a strategy that's based in childhood. It's a childhood strategy trying to solve an adult problem. And that's why it's not working. That's why it's never enough, because it's just not the right thing. It's not the solution. We're solving the wrong problem because we're solving a problem that existed in childhood that no longer exists.
That makes a lot of sense. And I love that quote. And I think I mean, it's off topic a little bit, so I won't go down that road, but I think that quote can kind of pertain to a few different things that we do as adults.
Yeah, 100% of our lives.
Right? That seem very, very playground, like I'm in the elementary school playground. But anyway, I digress. One other question that I have for this mom, and maybe you had it too, is where is she feeling not enough? Is it, I'm not doing enough, I don't look the part? Is it physical, or is she feeling like she's not having enough moments, or deep enough moments, or valuable enough moments? That was a question that I had.
Yeah. I think we hear that or we read that in, I feel like I'm not there enough for my kids. That was a quote, and they deserve better. And that breaks my heart so much. Because they deserve you. They deserve your authentic whole self. And that's enough.
Well, and can we just like go down this road real quick? Because I feel like this is really important, and it's not something that, in my experience, that the mamas that I've talked to, like, really pay enough attention to. And gosh, I lost my train of thought. It was really, really good, and really something that I wanted to share. And it was kind of a little down a little bit of a road. We were talking about things and the moments, and it's hard to be live when this happens. My freaking 43-year-old brain is just like losing it on me right now. And it's like right at the tip of my tongue, but I can't formulate it well enough for you guys to understand what I'm getting at. So I'll just move away, but I'll raise my hand if it comes back up.
Raise your hand if it comes back up, because I think we were going down the road of, I'm not there enough for my kids and they deserve better.
Got it. Thank you for the reminder. Sometimes I just need a little sign in the road. Do you agree with this? This is a feeling that I have, and this is kind of how I live my life, because I'm much happier this way. If I don't get my workout in, okay, and 4 days a week, because I love to do that. That's my me time. If I don't get my to-do list for work done, I work for myself. So do I have to show up at work every day? Not necessarily. Nobody's going to be calling me or anything, complaining. But if I don't do those things to help me feel like I'm myself, then am I really going to show up for this kid? Am I really good for this kid? You know what I mean? Like, if I'm not giving myself that, and I wonder if maybe that's what she means. Like, is she off doing things for herself that she needs to do to feel 100%? And then feeling guilt? Because I've had that. I've been, here sitting in my office, checking things off the checklist, and my kid's home from school and has been home for the last 45 minutes, and I haven't even seen him.
Yeah.
And I'll guilt myself for that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it could be any of those. I related to that statement because I felt that way before. Like, when I was first divorced, I was all by myself, and I didn't have any job experience. I didn't have any life experience. I guess I had life experience, but not really applicable on a resume. Right. And so I didn't have anything that would offer me an ability to get a job that would pay really well. I had three little kids. They were 2, 4, and 5 at the time. And so when I was divorced, I had to work 3 jobs. I was in school full time, and I was raising my kids by myself. And so I was real stressed.
I'm sure.
And I also hadn't done a lot of my work in terms of my own personal therapy, my own personal trauma work. I hadn't resolved a lot of my own issues, right? So I was deeply depressed. I had high anxiety, and I'm working 3 jobs and going to school full time and raising 3 kids alone, right? So the statement, I'm not there enough for my kids, they deserve better. I felt that way. And I can really, really understand how hard it is to be there for your kids when you're feeling depressed or when you're feeling stressed. The higher stress and higher level of trauma a mother has been through is directly going to impact their ability to be present with their children.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the same way, children, as I'm a child specialist, so I work with a lot of children in therapy. A child's prognosis in therapy, meaning how well is the child going to recover or do in therapy, how effective will the therapy be, is directly dependent on the caregiver's ability to regulate their own emotions.
Wow.
And to be calm and to be present. And unresolved trauma is directly related to the ability that we have to be calm and present. So the more trauma we have, the less capable we are of being present. Therefore, the less stable our children will feel. And so that's not a blame game. That's a just correlation, right? Like that's just how it is. And so we know that because our children's ability to self-regulate is dependent on our ability to teach them how to self-regulate. And if we don't know how to self-regulate, we can't teach them how to self-regulate.
Right.
And so when I was depressed and working and stressed and believing that I wasn't enough, I wasn't there for my kids either, because I was having a really hard time, even just showing up for myself. Like even getting up and taking a shower every day was hard. And so when your kid wants to play, Monopoly, and you're like, yo, I barely have like the energy to open my eyes today. Like that can make you feel, that's a spiral, right? So that's how I read that. That's how I felt. And I want that mom to know, like, it's okay. You're okay. And just showing up by taking 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes or 1 minute, and just sitting and being present with your kid and letting your kid just tell you about something, and just being like, cool, like just stopping. You don't have to do anything. You just have to sit there and listen. And if you say to your kid, can I watch you play this game that you're playing? They'll be like, sure. They'll be so excited, and they'll be like, yeah, I love this car because it's red and da, 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 and they'll tell you all about it. And you can be like, oh, cool. Like, I didn't know that. Oh, did you just win? Like, that's awesome. You didn't have to do anything. Just sit and be there. That's all they need. They need you to engage with them on an authentic level and not do anything.
I like that you said that, because I think a lot of times, I know I personally feel like I need to be doing the game, or I need to have to bring some, new craft he's never seen before to the table, or something like that. Whereas the most fun that we've ever had together was when we were just sitting around and fooling around and just doing nothing really.
Yeah. Because a kid's job is to please the mother, to make the parents happy. That's a child's biological imperative, right? So if you designed the game, now they have pressure to get it right.
Yeah.
So if it was your idea, well, now they can disappoint you, right? So they're going to be all, did I do a good job? But if you didn't design the game, if you just go to them and you're just like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this. That sounds cool. Can I watch? They're like, well, yeah.
Less pressure on them too.
There's no obligation, right? Like, so I wish I had known this back then, but you don't have to say and do all the right things. You just have to show up, just sit in the room and be like, that's cool. And just be with them. Like, and smile and let them have their ideas and thoughts and, imagination, and just be like, oh, wow, like, I didn't know you thought that way. I'd never thought of it like that, just acknowledge them, and you don't have to have any opinions about it. You don't have to have any corrections. You don't have to teach them anything. You don't have to do anything. You just be there with them, because that's what they need, because that's what makes them feel safe to be themselves.
And I think a lot of times as parents, we screw that up too.
So often,
I know I do.
Trying to do so much.
Yeah. And I'm trying to teach them constantly because, that's my job. And so, well, babe, that's not exactly how it works. Maybe I should just shut my mouth.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
Some of the time, sure. Like, it's because not every moment is a quote unquote teaching moment. I love teaching moments, right? Love them. I love teaching. It's my favorite. But we also want to just exist together, because a child doesn't know everything, and they don't have to. And every time we teach and correct, we're like, well, we're kind of pointing out that they don't know. And
Right.
so it's like, if you just like reserve maybe like a 50-50, right? Half the time they get it wrong, just don't say anything. If it matters, address it, right? Like, if you're working on homework, let's say, let's talk more about teaching. But if you're just, building a Lego and, machine or something, and he's like, I'm going to put the wings on the side so that he can fly this way. And you're like, well, physics makes it so that wouldn't happen. Like, who cares, right?
Who
Like,
cares? Yeah.
do it when it matters. Don't do it when it doesn't, because you don't have to be doing so much all the time. Just be there.
Well, and that's so much less stressful for us as parents, because we can
Do
just
that.
chill.
Yeah.
And something I picked up on that I think is super important that you said, I mean, I always think what you say is important, but something that I picked up on was that, look, they're watching.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah, they are.
they're learning from you, whether you're in teach mode or not.
Yeah.
And so if you have no ability to self-regulate, if you're, running around the house like a chicken with your damn head cut off all the time and not sitting down and just asking them about the game, like you said, what are we teaching them to do as adults?
Yeah.
We're passing down our anxieties and all of that stuff.
Right. Because stressed out parents create hypervigilant kids. Because like I said, it's biologically imperative that our children, like, as a human child, I need to be cared for by an adult, right? So when that adult is in a bad mood, that directly impacts my ability to be cared for, right? When that adult is in a good mood, I get cared for better, right? So that's just, I get that, right? As a human child. So I'm going to biologically be driven to encourage that. I want that adult to be in a good mood at all times. I want to make sure that adult is great. They're safe, they're happy, they're having a great time, because that makes me safer. So when children see their parents be stressed all the time, they're going to try to make them feel better some of the time, right? By doing things that are, a child's idea of how to make you feel better. And then we're probably not going to notice that. But they're also going to feel hypervigilant, because they're going to be like, oh, mom's so stressed out, I don't want to tell her about that.
Then
So
you start getting communicated with.
I hear this in therapy all the time, right? Like, I don't want to be a burden. I don't want to, my mom already has so much going on. My dad already has so much going on. Like, I don't want to bring this up because it's just going to make them feel more stressed. And then the child doesn't have anywhere to go because they have convinced themselves that you don't have capacity for them, which isn't necessarily true. It's just what they have taught themselves, because they want you to be okay all the time, right? So like they're trying to sacrifice their own needs for yours. And you might not know that's happening because they're not going to tell you, right?
Right.
And you definitely would have capacity for them most of the time. It's just, you don't know that that's what's going on. So it's like, so that's why when we just show up, like when we're just like open with them, that teaches them that we have room, that we have space, that they're not a burden. Because most of the time, if you think about a kid is with their mom all the time. So if you walked around with another person 24/7, you would catch them in a bad mood. You would catch them stressed out. You would catch them doing things that they don't like. You would catch, right? So you would notice all these interactions, if you were just with them. And if you were their child, you would think that it's your fault.
We do that as children.
We do
Yes.
that, right? We still do that. If we're out with a friend and they're having a bad day, you're probably like, what can I do to make it better?
Right.
So if your kid's with you 24/7, they're going to see all these different things and they're going to try to want to make it better. So the more often that we can just be like, hey, I'm good. And when I'm not good, I know that I'm going to do something for myself to help me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So like you don't have to be perfect all the time. You just have to demonstrate that you're capable and that it's not their responsibility, like that you've got it. Right? Like I'm having a tough day because I'm an adult and life can be stressful. And so I know that I'm going to need to take a little bit of extra time to myself today to relax, because that helps me so that I can be my best for you. Right? So that's like, okay, cool. She's doing it. She's taking care of herself. That means I don't have to take care of her. And so that's a way that we can kind of help our kids feel okay when we're not okay, but they don't feel unsafe. And so this I'm not enough driver is really coming from that. I need to take care of my parent.
Mm.
And they can never be enough to take care of you because they're children. That's not their job.
Right. Right. I love what you said with kind of without saying it, but because this is really the basis of the show and the reason why we even do this, but our mental health really matters, and it really sets like the tone.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah.
And so if we don't take care of, I mean, you hear about self-care and all of that kind of stuff. And, I think oftentimes people think, oh, well, self-care. Yay. I don't have time to get my nails done, whatever. It's not about getting your nails done, people. It's really not that. That may be part of it. And, maybe that's something that you really enjoy and it helps you relax or whatever. But I really feel like mental health doesn't necessarily get the spotlight that it needs in terms of self-care. That's self-care too.
Yeah. The biggest complaint I get, well, I guess I should say one of, because I technically haven't measured this, but I hear this a lot from kids that they want their moms to take care of themselves. Like I hear this all the time. They're like, my mom just does all this stuff. She's so stressed out all the time. And I'm like, oh, well, what would you rather have it be like? And then they'll be like, well, I just wish that she would, take a break and know that like, she doesn't have to do everything.
Mm.
Right? Like this is children telling me this about their parents. Right. And so like, they're like, I wish my mom would take better care of herself so that she wouldn't be so stressed out. And I've had kids even say things like, I want my mom to be here because she needs to have help because she's having a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
They just want what's best for you. They want to see you caring for yourself because they are dependent on your health. If you're not safe and healthy, that puts them in danger. That's a life threat for a child.
Mm-hmm.
And so their energy is going into measuring your capacity, measuring your stability, because that's what helps them know how to navigate. They're trying to adapt. They're trying to survive in this world.
And they're super adaptable. They're really, really good at it.
Oh, good at it. Yeah.
But then what is that creating? What kind of pattern is that creating for them for later,
Yeah. And so all that pressure that we got as kids that taught us to like be the perfect mom, right? We need to unlearn that. We need to say, okay, that's not it. Right. And in the 80s, that's what we thought was true about behaviors, right? Like we thought we were supposed to like focus on all these behaviors and teach all these things and to have all the structure and chore charts and whatever. That's what was taught, right? Like that's what we knew. That was scientific. And in the last 40 years, we have 40 years, we have learned more and we know more about the neurological connection with our nervous system and that brain body connection that drives our behaviors, those needs, those internal needs that drive our external behavior. So the internal need for safety and stability is usually what's driving a negative behavior or a behavior that is perceived as unhelpful or negative, right? I'm trying to regulate myself somehow and I don't know how. So this is what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know now that we don't want to ignore kids or send them away when they're having that type of behavior because they're in distress. Right. So we know now that what they need is a time. They need to sit with you and have you say, like, I've got you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to say the right thing or do a timeout or do whatever. You just sit with them and you say, I've got you. That's how to be there for your kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Put less pressure on yourself.
Well, and it doesn't have to be like, and I am so bad about this. I still do this to myself. It doesn't have to be like hours and hours and hours on end. I think you had said to me, what was the measurement of time? That if you're looking into their eyes and giving them your full attention, there was like a really short amount of time that they actually need. Now, granted, I like to do more when I can, but it's good to know that, that on those days when I'm just like super thin,
Yeah.
you know, I'm really stretched, that it doesn't, you know, I have to sit here staring at my kid for 3 hours.
No.
Just say the right things and just spend the right amount of time and, you know, do what makes them feel that safety and security that we always talk about. I think it's super important.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we can make it about a third of our interactions with them. So 30%. If we can do about 30% interactions where it's just I've got you. I'm with you. No purpose, just that. That's like perfection. That's the best, right? And that's like 30%, like 30, I'm telling you, 30% is like 100%. 60% of the time it works every time.
Right.
But seriously, what I'm saying is that you don't have to do this all the time. You can achieve the goal by just doing it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small shift. It's not okay, now I'm, it's like when you're trying to do, it's not like new year, new you, I'm going on a diet that I'm cutting out all sugar, like stop it. No, just
right.
Every couple of times, like, hey, have I, sat with my kid and just gotten interested in what they're doing yet today? No? Okay, I'm going to do that once. Great. Well done. Good job. That's plenty.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that, that moms understand out there, they're important, that
They're
their
so
needs are
important
too. And
Yes.
that it's not like a selfish thing. I hate hearing that word. Oh, I don't do that because it's selfish, or, oh, I don't, whatever, insert cool thing that a mom would like, because it's selfish, but you really you're still a person, you're still a human, just because you created a couple of little ones, that doesn't go away.
I know. You matter. You matter the most. You're the most important person to them.
Yeah, true.
And so they really, really want you to be healthy and happy. That's their biggest hope for their whole life, right? Like that's their Christmas wish.
Yeah. Yeah. And they may not know it, so they probably don't vocalize this. My kid doesn't vocalize that.
Yeah.
But it's good to know, what is going on between his ears.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's okay. It's good for them to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah.
That is a good clip. What time was that? 51 minutes? I'm clipping that one out. All right, Laura, what a good talk we had today, as we always have. Ladies out there, mamas, I really hope that it struck you as deeply as it struck me, because there was a lot of really wonderful insights and some great advice in this episode, as always. So thank you, Laura. And if our mamas would like to get in touch with you, connect with you, ask you questions, consult with you, all of that jazz, how can they do that?
You can get to me on my website at www.benaviri.com, BENAVIERI.com.
Awesome. All right, guys. Connect with Laura if you like what she said, and I'm sure you did, because she is pretty darn awesome. And you know what I love about Laura? I'm going to talk about her just real quick, even with her right here. So she's a mom just like us, guys, and she gets it. And she's a single mom too, and working full time. And like, she gets what we go through. And what I love even more is that you're so real and you're so down to earth and so easy to talk to. And you've had your own shit. Like you've gone through your own shit. You've worked on yourself. Like you have done the things that you talk about. And that's, I feel you're so special for many reasons, but that's a big one. So thank you so much for being with us.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. And that's the reason why I'm here, is because I did it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can feel better. I don't have to feel like shit all the time.
Yeah, right.
I want everybody to know this. Like I want to give that to all the people, because it's that you deserve that. You deserve that.
Totally agree. All right, ladies, we'll see you next month.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.